Hello everyone and welcome to this new course about clean code. This week I wrote a humble article for my team about clean code and I decided to share it with you here through this video. Clean code helps to write efficient, concise and simple code, and above all it improves the developer experience. If you like this course, please put a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you want to go deeper, I have created a masterclass to become an exceptional full stack developer. And this masterclass has been available since yesterday for only $12. You can find the link in the description. Thank you very much and enjoy this course. Today I wrote an article for my team about clean code and good practices for JavaScript application. So what I propose you to do now is to review quickly this article, and it's going probably to give you a lot of advice, a lot of good practices that you can use when you code your own web application. Just a disclaimer, I know a lot of developers got strong opinions, they got a lot of ideas on how we should code and how we should not code, what is good, what is bad. If you know me, you know that I'm not that kind of developer. I will never give you some advice about what is good, what is bad. But here in this article, I'm trying to show you examples that explain to you that some practices that we have that are probably comfortable for us will not be comfortable for the future us or for our team. And that's the goal of this article, is to show you probably what you should change in your way of coding if you want to improve your quality, your code quality. Okay, so if you don't know what is clean code, I just asked ChatGPT to give a quick definition about it. So here we got the key points of clean code in a very concise form. So the clean coding, it's a practice that helps you to improve the readability. So we give a clear and meaningful name. The simplicity also of the code, we try to avoid complexity as maximum. The consistency, which means that we work on the naming and formatting the naming most of the time of the functions, of the variables, etc., etc. The minimalism, so we try to avoid as much as possible the unnecessary code. The modularity, so we want to have a small code base, so it's easy to read, it's faster to understand, it's faster to navigate. Self-contained units, also we're going to talk about that. And also we try to do some documentation, even if in here in this list we got documentation, but that's not something that I really recommend to do in terms of experience. The testability, and there are some principles. So the testability, we understand what it is. If you are doing some test on your app, you understand that there is some stuff that you need to facilitate if you want to write your code well in some way. So the principles here, we can see that we got the dry principle, no code duplication, dry, which means don't repeat yourself. We got the KISS principle, keep it simple. YAGNI, only what we need. Solid, follow design principles. So we can see here, down here, that we got the reference on Robert C. Martin's Clean Code, and that's good because that's the book, actually, which is the Bible of clean coding, written by Robert C. Martin series. And I'm also doing this video because right now I'm reading it again. It's an old book, 15 years ago, something like this. And now that I got more experience, when I come back to this book, I read it with a different mindset, a different vision. Okay, so today I wanted to show to my team, my engineering team, that probably we can have some rules inside our team that can help us to make a better code and a better developer experience. Because that's also the topic, the developer experience is about how hard, how difficult is our working experience, our working days. Okay, we want to improve that in order to be able to be more productive and to be actually less tired, I would say. Okay, so let's just quickly read this article that you can find in the description if you want to read it. Okay, so the first principle, which is the most important for me, it's the readability of your code. So there is two possibilities. Either you are working alone, either you are working in a team. If you are working alone, probably you don't care. Like you write really dirty code and stuff. Probably a bit like this, with some naming that are very complicated to re-understand after that. Sometimes, probably often, without types and like there is nothing here that is secure, okay? We don't feel secure when we see that kind of function here. And that's fine for now, but for your future you, it will be terrible, because when you will come back to the code, it will hard to understand and to read. The second case, it's if you are working in a team. If you are working in a team, well, you write code for other people, for the people of your team, and you would like them to understand what you wrote. So here in this case, we think that code should be easy to read and understand. That's the first principle of the clean coding. And we can see here that this function is bad, okay? We don't understand what it means by the name. We probably want to push some string to try, but here we can see that we got some operation. It's going to crash. It's bad at every level. So one of the solutions that we can provide here is at first to improve the readability of the name. So here we got here calculate salary instead of calculate sal, which doesn't mean anything. We know here that we've got the hours worked as a first parameter, the hourly rate, and the bonus. Here we got letters, and those letters here are just really, really abstract, okay? We cannot work on something like this. We don't understand what it means. And here, that's a practice that we have to integrate when we start coding inside the team. We have to format the naming as much as possible. Okay, it's not that easy. It requires some training, but at least here, and it's not necessarily perfect to write this function. We're going to talk about that in a second, but at least here it's more readable than this. So try to avoid as maximum as possible to get this kind of code, which is here, which doesn't mean anything with letters and stuff. I know you are seeing a lot of code like this. I know you are seeing tutorial with a lot of code like this with letters and stuff. But however, just try to be nice with your future you. Okay, so here, this function also what we could do, and I know some of you don't like TypeScript, but which would be cool also would be to determine that here we are waiting for numbers as a type. So we probably would want to add some types with TypeScript that would increase this. So the readability of the code, it's the most important. And here, this is just an example, but in terms of coding, in terms of organizing your file, there's also other good practices that we could add to this. If you are interested to know more, just put a comment down below. Okay, so descriptive name, we already saw it in the previous example. Use meaningful and descriptive names for variable, function, and classes. So here we saw up here that we got just letters to just catch the parameter that we pass to our function. Okay, and here we can see that we got x is equal to 10. Okay, that's nice, that's cool. We replace 10 by x, and we know that we can use x in a lot of different places. However, guys, that's really bad to do that for many reasons. Again, it's not a moral judgment. It's a strong opinion of mine. But what I advise you to do is always to put a name that is really, really explicit. So here I put descriptive, but actually I should have put explicit name. Like, you got to be really clear about what it does, even if it looks dumb. So here we got max user limit is equal 10. This is really dumb, okay, as a name of a variable, but at least when it's really dumb, you are sure that most of the people will understand it. So that's really, really important. Another one, which is the single responsibility principle. So here, each function or class should have only one reason to change, okay? Okay, so if we look at that down here, we've got our function manage user content. And here, this function is receiving 3 parameters. So the username, the password, and isAdmin. IsAdmin, we guess it's going to be a Boolean. Username and password would be a string. Okay, we can see here that we save the user here, okay, with username and password. And then if it's admin, we grant the admin privilege. All right, so it's a complete function that is doing several actions at the same time. So here we can see that in one function, we are basically doing 2 things. We manage the user account, we save the user account, and we grant privilege. So here the name of the function, we could even change it for save user and grant admin privilege. It would be very long. The problem in here is that here, first, we save the user with the username and the password, and probably later we would use that function again, which means that we will grant again the privilege, okay? So that's a problem here. That's a problem for one main reason. And this reason is we got two different actions inside one function. So here, what we would like to do instead is to separate both of the functions. So we will be able to save the user with the username and the password, and that's it. After, we would grant admin privilege just down here, okay? So as you see, we split this function into two. And that's what I'm doing in most of my videos, if you already saw that. In most of my videos, I already got hooks under Next.js, and I have one function that is doing one thing and returning one thing at a time. So it's the single responsibility principle. One function is actually responsible to do only one thing. If you do that, it's going to be better to read, and we avoid some side problems that we can have later. Okay, another practice which is interesting, it's the magic numbers. So avoid magic numbers. Use name constant instead of hard-coding numbers. Okay, so here we got an example. Here, if score is superior to 75, we console log passed. Right, that's good. So 75, it's some kind of limit. We understand that there's a limit that we need to pass, just like a grade that we need to pass, and then we are able to process some operation inside this condition in here. That's totally fine, it's working, that's great. However, what we would like to do is probably to reuse this 75. So it means that somewhere else we would have a condition that say if score is under 75, its score is equal to 75, etc., etc. Well, we would like to basically do some other operation, which means that 75 will be everywhere inside my app. Well, the solution is easy, is to store somewhere inside our code this variable under under a specific name, and here we got passing score in capital letter. Okay, capital letter, why? Because we understand that this will be a constant, something that will not change and would be reused everywhere inside the app. So here we store a passing score, and suddenly we can call passing score in here. However, please be safe with magic numbers. It also works for status or stuff like this, okay? Be safe, try to avoid to have too many variables saved like this, because at the end you will finish with a huge config file where you will have a lot of different variables. It will be very heavy, and there's a point where your code will not be readable, okay? We need to try to be consistent in our code. We need to be regular, and having too many constants like this, it's probably bad. Try to avoid to have too many. Another principle which is really basic and you probably encounter already in your developer life, it's to minimize the side effects. So functions should avoid changing the state outside their scope. And this is happening a lot in junior code, and most of young developers are doing that. But this is totally normal. I also did that at the beginning. Okay, here we got a total variable, which is 0. And here we got a function called addTotal with an amount. And we actually push a number here to the total variable, which is up here. So if we put 2 in here, it's going to be 0 plus 2, and we're going to have total 2. Okay, so this is good, okay? This is really good. However, it's working. But however, the problem is that every time we will call addTotal, we will actually change one element, which is total. And probably if you are doing this kind of operation inside your application, it means that you will have another variable. Let's call it let the prime agent, and let's say his age 65. We would have to create a function add age to the prime agent, and we will call the prime agent. So we will have two functions that are basically doing the same, but for two variables different. The solution to that it's basically here to have a function called add, and we pass here a number, which is probably here total, and we pass here a second number, which would be the amount. And at the end, this function is supposed to do the operation to do the sum from the first number and the second number. So this function here is formatted, okay? It's a formatted function. Sorry for my French accent, but it means that this function can be reused in many cases and do only one thing at a time. This function has only the goal to make the sum between two numbers and to return the sum of these numbers. Okay, here add total has only one function and will probably be used at one place in the code. If you are working with components, for instance, like you have a receipt and you call add to total, well, probably there's only this receipt that will call this function. This is totally dumb. But this function add could be reused everywhere. So we want to minimize here the side effects of the scope. We want to minimize the fact that this total can be changed for whatever reason at a certain point, and to have this useless function that is called one time, okay? We want to add functions that are formatted most of the time. Again, please do not overuse it. It's a question of balance. If you have too many functions that are really, really basic, probably you can use a third-party library. There's a lot of third-party libraries that are doing such things. Comments, this is a real topic, and there's a lot of people that are arguing on comments. So here I just wrote comments should explain why something is done, not what is done. Okay, why do we do something? Okay, so here we've got a good explanation. We've got this incrementer, which is at 0. And here, as you can see, I say incrementer because it's a I, and in my mind, I read I, so it's incrementer, which is bad. I should put incrementer in here. But here, this is a bad practice, in my opinion. We've got 0, and we put a comment that says initialize counter. So there is two ways to explain that, and I think I'm going to take the simplest. This is useless, and this is bullshit to have initialize counter as a comment next to 0. We know that we initialize a variable. This is why we wrote let I is equal to 0, okay? So first, this comment is useless. Second, we explain here what is done. And we don't explain why do we initialize this incrementer. So basically what we would like to do is to say incrementer initialize at this point to do x later. Okay, that would be better. Here is a good example on how we can use the command sparingly. So here we have retry up to 3 times if connections failed. So basically I didn't even read yet the function. I just can read here on top of the code and not on the left, not before, not on the right, not inside the function, on top of the function or on top of a variable, on top of a file or whatever. I can read retry up to 3 times if connection failed. So even if I read just this line, I already know what the function is going to do just after, or the for in this case, the for loop that we got. So we got let attempt, and we can see the difference with the I up here. If attempt is under 3, we continue, okay? So it means that after at 3 it's gonna stop. And we got the function connect that is called, and it's going to break if we don't connect. Of course, here we call the function connect, okay? In this situation here, this is a function that we call, so the function will be called. And here we are supposed to return something in the function connect, and if we are connected, we break, okay? So again, comments should explain why something is done and not what is done. Okay, let's jump now on my favorite, the dry principle. Don't repeat yourself. Avoid duplicating code by abstracting common functionality. Here we've got an example. We have 2 functions. Calculate area of rectangle, width and 8, and we've got calculate area of square with the side multiplied by the side. Then we've got the function, which is the good way of doing things. Calculate area, we pass the whole shape, and whatever the shape it is, we finally return two different operations. If the shape is type rectangle, we return actually the width multiplied by the height, so the first function. If we got the shape of type square, we return the second function. So this example is a bit tricky because we could probably, in some cases, for instance, if you are developing a video game, we'll have a hook with those two functions, and we could probably call those two functions that are up here. But this example here is easy to understand. We want to calculate an area. That's what we want to do. Whatever will be the shape, we will later just add a new condition in here, and this function calculate area will just receive a shape and return the area. So it's a little bit like our previous example. We want to format our code, but to format it in a way that we can at the same time read it, and we don't want to duplicate the code. So this is the don't repeat yourself principle. We don't want to repeat all the time same operation, even if here we calculate the height and the width and the side multiplied by the side, okay? We basically do the same thing, and we can understand that by just reading the name of our function. Here we got calculate area, and here we got calculate area also. So basically we should have only one function to do it. I think code duplication is probably one of the most common mistakes when we are a developer, and this is something that is really hard to internalize, something that is really hard to understand. It's just experience that helps you in time to avoid code duplication. And to do that, it's a bit mindset, mind gymnastic, I would say. Not a mindset, a mind gymnastic. When you create a web application, you have to think before coding how you're going to code your app. You got to think about the design pattern, you got to think about the architecture, etc., etc. And the more experience you get, the faster it's going to be to create web application. Okay? So basically, duplicating code, it's happening to everybody, even me. With time, I'm duplicating less and less code, but I would say like probably 10% of the time I duplicate code. But when I was young, when I was a young developer, I was duplicating code all the time, just copying, pasting the code everywhere. This is useless. The best practice is to think about the fact that probably you should write this code one time in your life. After, you should just call this code from a library, or you would have to just re-implement it inside your app in a hook or whatever. But the idea is not to write all the time the same code. It's completely dumb. And this is a waste of time. You're going to waste a lot of time if you don't abstract your main functionalities. Okay, here we got consistent formatting. So use consistent indentation, spacing, and style throughout the code. So I wrote that at that point of the article, but probably should have been into the readability specification of clean coding. Well, most of the time it's really annoying, okay, to see that the code is not really well indented. Okay, it's really psychological, okay? I know it's some people don't care, but we would like to have some clean code, because when we arrive on the work on somebody else, we like when it's clean, okay? It's like when you arrive at an Airbnb or a hotel room. You like that the bed is done, there is nothing on the ground, no dust, the bathroom is clean, the toilets are clean and stuff. It's basically the same in here. We would like to have some code that is easy to read, easy to understand, and to do that, we use tools such as ESLint, but sometimes our ESLint are not configured the same way, so we end up having spaces inside tabs and stuff. Depending on what you do, try to do consistent formatting. It's really important in my opinion. Then we arrive also to a specific part of the article, which is probably the most important. Here, we're going to talk about error handling, and it's exactly like the code duplication. I'm not even perfect at that, but we should always remember that our applications can have errors, and our navigators, Chrome, Brave, Arc, whatever, are catching those errors and can do stuff with it, okay? So here, what I wanted to do is to say to you, hey, try to properly handle your errors inside your application. A lot of developers think it's a waste of time. They think it's useless. They don't see the benefits immediately of what it is to handle the errors and exceptions. A very good tool for that is Sentry. Sentry is amazing. It's catching all your errors. We are using it in my company, especially on the back end. It helps you to catch the errors and understand where it comes from, what it was, and it's creating reports and a lot of other stuff. I let you go to check it, but basically here we got an example. Okay, we've got here a function called readFile, and we got a read file path, and it's Node.js. Here we can see file system, read file sync, file path, UTF-8. That's great. That's amazing. We return basically the result. However, the problem here is that we don't catch the error, and we don't even know what we could do at the end with that. We just know that we're going to read the file synchronously with the file path. That's good. Okay, that's great. However, if there's an error, there's nothing happening. And it's the case in most of the code that I'm seeing everywhere all the time. We want to use try catch. So try catch, I don't remember in what version of ECMAScript it has been introduced, but try catch is helping us to just trigger a function, do some operation in the try, so as its name says, and if there is an error, whatever function, let's say that up here we're going to have some other operations and stuff, and we could have several errors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, whatever. The catch here would catch every error coming from the try. Okay, so here we've got a better example. We can see basically that we've got here this function, which is read file and receive the file path, and we return here the same function, so file system read file synchronously, and then down here we can see that we got the catch with the error. So a basic example would be at least to put a console log with file not found, or just to catch the error and deconstruct the error as I'm doing down here. Okay, this is just an example. That's the minimum. What I would advise you to do is to use something like Sentry, as I said to you, because it's really good to catch all the errors. Otherwise, you got two other options which are really simple. I'm going to start with the second one because the first one is really a custom one. The option 2 is to throw the new error. So throw helps you to return actually as an error. So here, a new error, my error that I catch directly inside my browser. Okay, so not only inside your browser, by the way, but here you can throw directly the new error, and you can tell to the whole application, hey, we are in the status of error, and we can do this X, Y, Z. Okay, that's the basic, at least console log and throw the new error. All right. The option, which is the option 1 here, and I don't know why I put that in option 1, probably for my team, is that we can't throw the new error, then return this custom message here. But what I would do here is to return as a status the error status. So the HTTP status, you probably know them, but here we got 400, 500, whatever. I'm letting you check this. And here we return a message, which could be the error message. So basically, when we're going to read the file, if there's an error, at least we got the subject with the status and the message error that we could display. That's the minimum we could do if we would like to give some response to a front end, or just a response to the developer who is watching at the test or reading the file and stuff. Also, these errors are going to end up in logs. And if you come back on your app history or your server history, you will be able to catch the logs and to catch those elements which says that, hey, we had a problem at this point of the application. So as a custom message, what I would do, I would say, error when I try to read the file, 2 points, and file path. So I would be able to understand where is exactly the error. If you don't handle your errors, guys, well, it's going to be a problem in the future. Why? Because simply you will have errors that will go into the void, and you will never be able to debug perfectly. To debug perfectly, there is 2 major things you need to do. And again, these are just my advice. The first thing to do, in my opinion, would be to locate the error, to know where it comes from. The second thing to do would be to identify exactly what happened. And to identify exactly what happened, you need to write messages that you understand. In clean coding, you need to work on your naming. You need to work on your readability. You need to work on your consistency. Okay, so basically when you create a custom message, it has to be really simple to understand. Okay, read file failed when trying to read file path. Okay, just these clean sentences. Don't write long lines and stuff. You want to be concise and go straight to the point. So error handling, it's really important. And for those who don't handle their error until now, I really advise you to train just with basic stuff, even if it's throwing a new error or console logging a new error or just return custom messages like this. Okay, the last principle is to use libraries. Okay, so basically here we've got a dumb example, and I did it in purpose for my article to work and get comments. That's just a dumb practice, but I'm sorry, it's working. Leverage existing libraries, okay? Leverage existing libraries and framework to avoid reinventing the wheel. Okay, so as I said to you before, we had this function add a plus b. And basically this function, well, everybody's writing this function. So there's probably a library that I could install, a hook that I would use to basically not writing this function again. The best example that I can give you if you are doing some React, it's React use. It's a library, okay, that you can install. And then you can use directly from React use a lot of functions. And look at this. We've got, for instance, use cookie. We've got use counter, use over, etc., etc. There's a lot here of function that you can use and that you don't want to write again. So these functions here are already coded inside React use, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Please go to use React use. It's going to be faster for you. So if I come back here, we've got a function parse JSON string, and we return the JSON parse JSON string. And here, as a good example, I put exactly the same example as the bad example. But instead of writing this kind of function, probably before I would check if a library is doing the job. If developers exist, it's to save you time. If developers exist, it's to create applications that are doing the job for you. If developer exists, it's simply to write the code that you will not have to write. So I would go here on React use and I would check, and probably I would find the function that I need. So here I don't get necessarily the case, but we can see here that we've got async effect, and we can see here that I can use an async effect directly coming from React use instead of writing my own promise, my own circle inside React, which would be completely dumb. Finish this quick course by this sentence. Following this principle ensure you that your code is clean, maintainable, and efficient. So if you liked this course, please put a thumbs up, put a comment. And also, if you want, you can check my masterclass, my full stack developer masterclass, that is available for $12, which contains a masterclass of Next.js, Nest, and Supabase. And I'm going to add more courses in the future. This is a lifetime payment that we got in here. So if you want to join, if you are free to join, it's going to arrive probably in the summer 24. And that's it. I'm also going to give you the link to this quick article that I had a lot of pleasure to write. I hope you will improve your quality of coding, and I hope you learn some little stuff to improve also your developer experience, because this is the most important. I also advise you to read clean code for those who really want to go deep into clean coding. Of course, in this article, I didn't go really deep into clean coding. I just gave you the 10 rules that are really, for me, really important to respect when you want to write good code or clean code. Thank you very much. See you. Goodbye.